New Year's Eve has always been a weird night for me. There's too much pressure to feel something. Something magical, something romantic, something you'll remember. But most years, I end up standing off to the side with a drink in my hand, pretending to laugh at something on my phone while other people kiss and yell and cry at midnight. This year, though, was different. Because this year, my best friend took my hand during the countdown, and his girlfriend was standing right next to us. We weren't even supposed to be at the same party. I'd been invited by a friend from work, this guy Connor, who throws these over-the-top house parties with LED lights and homemade punch that's always way too strong. I figured I'd show up, stay for a drink or two, and dip out before midnight so I could avoid that weird, lonely moment when everyone's kissing and I'm awkwardly refreshing my phone like I'm waiting for a text. But then I saw Liam. He was across the room when I walked in, talking to someone, drink in hand, that stupidly charming half smile on his face. He was in a black button-down, sleeves rolled up, collar open just enough to show the tiniest bit of his chest. He looked good. Like, frustratingly good. And then I saw her, Camille. His girlfriend. She was stunning, of course. Always was. Confident, polished, social, in that effortless way that made people naturally gravitate toward her. The kind of person who could charm a room without even trying. I almost turned around and left. Liam saw me before I could, his face lighting up in that familiar way it always did when he saw me. That was the thing. He always made me feel like I mattered, like I wasn't just some guy hanging around in the background of his life. He cut through the crowd and pulled me into a hug, his arms warm around me, his cologne familiar. "Dude," he said, pulling back. "I didn't know you were coming to this." "Didn't know you were either," I said, my voice barely above the music. "Thought you were at Camille's friend's thing?" He shrugged, grinning. We bounced. Too many pretentious people in matching outfits. "This is more fun." I smiled, trying not to show how much I hated that he was here with her. Camille appeared a second later, looping her arm through Liam's. She smiled at me, all polite friendliness. "Hey you, long time." "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. "Good to see you." She leaned in and kissed Liam on the cheek, and I told myself not to look away, not to flinch. I'd gotten good at that, at pretending it didn't sting, pretending I didn't care that the guy I'd been quietly in love with for the last year was happily taken. The three of us ended up hanging out together for most of the night. It was like old times, except it wasn't, because now Liam would sometimes rest his hand on Camille's lower back, or she'd brush a strand of hair behind his ear, and I'd feel like I was watching a movie I wasn't cast in. We drank. We laughed. I lost count of how many times I thought about just walking out. Then the countdown started. Someone turned off the lights except for the glowing string lights on the ceiling. The music faded into a soft instrumental, something slow and sparkly and cinematic. Everyone started shouting, 10, 9, 8. Liam and Camille stood in front of me, close together, too close, my stomach twisted. 7, 6, she reached for his hand. 5, he didn't take it. 4, instead, he turned toward me. 3, and reached for mine. 2, his fingers slid into mine. Warm, firm. 1, I looked at him. He looked at me. And then everyone around us erupted. Shouting, kissing, hugging. Champagne sprayed somewhere in the back. The room tilted slightly, but it wasn't the alcohol. It was him, standing there, holding my hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. Camille didn't notice. She'd turned around to hug one of her friends. And Liam, he just kept holding on. He didn't let go. That was the first thing I noticed. Even as the noise around us swelled, cheers, clinking glasses, drunken shouts of Happy New Year, Liam kept holding my hand like nothing about this was strange. Like it wasn't happening in the middle of a room packed with people, his girlfriend just a few feet away. I didn't move. Couldn't. I stood there frozen, hand wrapped in his, trying to play it cool while my heart pounded so hard I felt it in my throat. Then, just as casually as he'd taken it, Liam gave my hand the slightest squeeze and let go. He turned to Camille like nothing happened, like he hadn't just flipped my entire night, my entire year, upside down. She leaned in to kiss him, and I looked away. I pretended to sip from my cup, even though it was empty. Pretended to laugh at something someone nearby shouted, pretended I wasn't trying to piece together what the hell just happened. Was it a joke? Some weird New Year's prank? Had he meant to grab Camille's hand and accidentally taken mine? No. No, I was standing behind them. He reached back, on purpose. It was deliberate. My stomach did a slow, uneasy flip. After the initial chaos of the countdown died down, the party eased back into a sort of pleasant haze. People paired off. Some filtered outside into the cold for fresh air or cigarettes. Others collapsed onto couches or kept dancing to the music someone had turned back up. I drifted toward the kitchen. Needed something to do. Needed distance. I poured myself whatever was left in the punch bowl. Tasted like straight vodka and cheap fruit juice. And leaned against the counter, letting the cold of the cup ground me. I needed to reset. Reboot. Convince myself I hadn't just hallucinated Liam holding my hand in the most confusing, public, completely out of nowhere way possible. But then he found me again. "Hey," he said softly, coming up beside me. "You good?" I didn't look at him right away. "Yeah." He nudged my shoulder lightly. "That didn't look like a yeah." I glanced over. He was looking at me the way he always did when something was on his mind. Slightly tilted head, brow pinched, eyes doing that quiet, searching thing like he was trying to read between the lines. I shrugged. "Just weird night." He nodded like he understood. "It is kind of weird, huh?" "Especially the part where you grabbed my hand," I said. Voice low, not accusing, just putting it out there. Liam blinked. He didn't look away, didn't laugh it off. He just kind of stood there like he'd been waiting for me to bring it up. Then he said, "Yeah, I did. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just those 3 words." And somehow, they made my pulse skip worse than the hand-holding itself. "I'm not crazy, right?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light, joking. "That actually happened?" He gave a small smile. "You're not crazy," I waited. For something. For a laugh, a just messing with you, a Camille dared me to. Anything that would make this make sense. But instead, he leaned a little closer and said, "I just wanted to." That short sentence hit me harder than it should have. Liam. I started, but I didn't even know what I was trying to say. "I know," he said quickly, running a hand through his hair. "I know it's weird. I know I shouldn't have. I just..." He paused, frowning at his own drink like it might give him the words he was looking for. "I wasn't thinking. Or maybe I was thinking too much." I blinked. "You were thinking too much when you held my hand during the countdown?" "Yeah," he said quietly, "because I've been thinking about doing something like that for a while." I swear, the whole party could have gone silent and I wouldn't have noticed. I just stared at him. "You have a girlfriend," I finally said. He didn't flinch. He just nodded, eyes dropping to the floor. "Yeah, I know." "So, what was that?" I asked. "What are you doing?" He exhaled slowly, like he didn't quite know how to answer. "I don't know," he said. "I didn't plan it. It just felt right." I looked around, everyone was yelling and smiling, and I wanted you to be the person I was holding on to. That single sentence knocked the air out of my lungs. I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't even know what I felt. Part of me wanted to be angry. This wasn't fair, not to Camille, not to me. But another part, the bigger part, felt like it had been waiting to hear something like that for way too long. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Liam looked at me again. "I'm sorry if I made it weird." I let out a soft laugh, almost involuntary. "You think?" He winced. "Yeah, fair." I looked away, stared into the living room where Camille was sitting on the couch with a couple friends, laughing at something on someone's phone. She looked happy, comfortable, like she didn't have a clue her boyfriend was here with me, admitting he wanted to hold my hand during the moment she probably thought he'd be kissing her. "I don't get it," I said, my voice quieter now. "What are you doing, Liam?" He didn't answer right away, just stood there, next to me in the dim light of the kitchen, the music thumping in the background, his drink untouched. Finally, he said, I think I'm trying to figure it out. I didn't say anything after that. What could I say? I think I'm trying to figure it out. Those words had a weight to them that didn't feel casual, not like something he just said to see how I'd react. He meant it, and that scared me almost as much as it made me feel something else, something I didn't want to name yet. We stood there in silence, side by side, both of us suddenly too aware of how loud the party was around us. How distant it felt, like we were tucked inside some weird little bubble in the kitchen while the rest of the world carried on. Clueless. Liam sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I didn't mean to dump that on you. You didn't dump anything, I said, still staring into my drink, watching the ice melt. You just confused the hell out of me. That's fair, he said. You're allowed to be confused. I'm confused too. No offense, man, but you don't look confused. You look like someone who just did exactly what they wanted to do. That made him smile, but there was something sad behind it. I wanted to hold your hand, he said. I wasn't thinking about what it meant until after. You didn't think about Camille? I did, he said quietly, but not in that second. I didn't know what to do with that. The honesty, the selfishness, the way it made something ache in my chest that I'd been trying to ignore for months. I set my drink down on the counter and turned to face him fully. Liam, I don't know what this is. He looked at me, his eyes searching. Neither do I. You've got a girlfriend, I said again, like maybe saying it out loud a second time would make it stick. And she's, actually great. You know that, right? I do, he said, eyes dropping to the floor. She is. That's what makes this harder. This? I echoed. What is this? He didn't answer right away. His mouth opened, then closed again, like he was trying to assemble something real out of a pile of broken pieces. And then he looked up and said, I've been thinking about you a lot, for a while now. I didn't breathe. I don't know what that means, he went on, but it's not nothing. I know that much. There was a long pause where neither of us moved. Then I said, very quietly, You can't say stuff like that. Why not? Because it messes with my head, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Because I've spent months trying to get over you. That finally made something flicker in his expression. You have? Dude, I said, laughing once. Dry, bitter. Come on, of course I have. You think I hang out with you every weekend for the beer in your Spotify playlists? I always assumed it was my great cooking. That made me crack a smile, despite myself. He saw it and softened. Look, he said, stepping closer. I didn't plan this. I didn't mean to do it this way. But something happened tonight, and I didn't want to ignore it. You mean holding my hand? I mean the moment before that, he said. Right before the countdown started. I looked at you, and I wanted to be close to you. I didn't care who saw. I stared at him. My heart was racing in a way that made my head feel fuzzy. I couldn't tell if I wanted to run or pull him into me. Behind us, someone popped open a bottle of champagne and a cheer erupted in the next room. The sound jolted me back into the moment. Camille's still here, I said. I know. She could have seen it. I kind of wanted her to. That made my stomach drop. What the hell, Liam? He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. I know, okay? It's messed up. I'm not proud of it. But I think I needed to do something that would make me stop lying to myself. And to her. His face darkened a little. Yeah, and to her. We stood there in silence again. This one felt heavier than the others. Finally, I said, What are you gonna do? He exhaled, long and slow. I don't know yet, but I know I owe her honesty. And I owe you some too. I didn't ask for any of this, you know. I said, but my voice had lost its edge. I wasn't expecting anything tonight. Just came here to get drunk and maybe eat some leftover cheese cubes. He laughed softly. You always do that thing. Make a joke when it gets too real. I shrugged. Yeah, well, real is messy. He looked at me again, serious now. If I told you I've been feeling this way for a while, would you believe me? I wanted to say no, that it was easier to pretend this was a one-time moment of confusion, but instead, I nodded. Yeah, I'd believe you. Liam took a step closer. What do we do now? I looked at the doorway that led back into the party, where Camille was. I thought about how kind she always was to me. How much I'd hated her for being with him, even though she didn't deserve that. I thought about how I'd be the villain if this went any further. If I let him touch me again. If I wanted him to. I don't know, I said honestly. But maybe we don't do anything tonight. He nodded slowly. Okay, but you can't keep bouncing between both of us. I know, and you can't do this again. Grab my hand in front of her, confuse me, then disappear. I won't, he said, voice low. I promise. I didn't know if I believed him, but I wanted to. I stayed at the party longer than I meant to. Liam drifted back into the living room after our talk, and I lingered in the kitchen, nursing my drink, trying to clear my head. Every time I peeked into the other room, I saw him sitting next to Camille, like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't just had the kind of conversation that rearranges the walls inside your chest. He laughed when she said something. She leaned against him. His arm instinctively rested behind her on the couch. I looked away. I wanted to leave, but walking out felt too dramatic. Too obvious. I didn't want to give anyone, including myself, the satisfaction of that kind of scene. So I waited. I made small talk with a couple people I barely knew. I scrolled on my phone like I had urgent texts to reply to. I avoided the hallway that led back to the couch. It was after 1 a.m. when I finally slipped out. I didn't say goodbye. The cold slapped me in the face as soon as I stepped outside. It helped. The chill made my brain sharper, pulled me out of the soft, dizzying fog that conversation with Liam had left behind. I walked home. It took 20 minutes. Not once did I pull out my phone to check if he'd messaged me. Not once did I stop thinking about what he said. The next day, I stayed in bed too long. Ignored texts. Didn't check Instagram. I thought maybe he'd reach out. Maybe he'd follow up, try to explain, say he talked to Camille, or that he wanted to see me. Nothing. Around 4 in the afternoon, I got a one-word text. Hey. I stared at it for a solid minute before responding. Hey. Another pause. Then, can we talk? I typed 100 different versions of, what do you want to talk about? Before finally just sending, now. He said he'd be over in 20. I got up, brushed my teeth, threw on a hoodie that didn't smell like tequila and regret. I wasn't sure what I wanted out of this conversation. I just knew I didn't want to spend another day replaying the last one in my head. When the knock came, it was light. 3 small taps, almost unsure. I opened the door. He looked tired. Hoodie, beanie, hands shoved in his pockets. Still too handsome for his own good. Hey, he said again, like we hadn't already said that an hour ago over text. Come in. He stepped inside, and for a minute we stood in the entryway, neither of us saying anything. I watched him scan the room like he'd forgotten what my apartment looked like he didn't used to come over all the time, throw himself on my couch, eat my snacks, and fall asleep halfway through whatever movie we picked. Finally, he said, I talked to Camille. I nodded, tension coiling up in my chest. She asked me what was going on, he said. Last night, said I seemed distracted, different. You told her, he hesitated, not everything, but enough. I crossed my arms. What's enough mean? I told her I'm not in a place to keep pretending, he said. That I've been confused for a while. That I have feelings I haven't figured out yet. I narrowed my eyes. Feelings for me. Yeah, he said, quiet. You. I didn't say anything right away. I wasn't sure how to respond. My heart was doing that annoying thing again, pounding too hard, making it difficult to think clearly. She asked me if I cheated on her, he continued. I told her no because I didn't. I mean, I guess emotionally I did. I leaned back against the wall. What did she say? She said she already knew. That surprised me. He let out a short, breathy laugh. Apparently, I've been making it obvious for months. I could have told you that. He looked at me, something soft and regretful in his eyes. I should have ended it sooner. Before I dragged you into all this. I shook my head. You didn't drag me. I stayed. I watched it happen. I could have walked away too. He stepped closer, not too close, just enough that I could feel the shift in the air between us. So what now? I asked, voice low. He looked down for a second, then back at me. I don't want to mess this up. You kind of already did, I said, not unkindly. Yeah, he nodded. But I want to fix it. I raised an eyebrow. Fix what, exactly? We're not a thing. We never were. He hesitated. What if I want us to be? I stared at him, my breath caught in my throat. I don't expect you to jump into anything, he said quickly. I get that I messed this up, that I hurt someone, that you don't trust me, but I can't keep pretending I don't feel something when I do. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't say anything at all. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded, backing toward the door. I'll give you space, he said, but I meant what I said, and I'll wait. Before I could process that, he was gone. The door clicked shut behind him, and I stood there, in the quiet, with my heart still racing, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do now. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept staring at the ceiling, hearing his voice replay in my head. I want us to be something. I'll wait. The words bounced around like they were trying to settle somewhere safe, but kept hitting the walls instead. It didn't help that I didn't know what I wanted. Scratch that. I did know. I just didn't know if I trusted it. Or him. Or myself, really. Because, yeah, I'd wanted him. For months. Maybe longer than I'd ever admitted. I'd analyzed every smile, every inside joke, every time his knee bumped mine under the table. I'd lived on those little moments like they meant something. But I never thought we'd actually get here. And now that we were, now it felt terrifying. Because if this thing between us broke, it wouldn't just hurt. It would wreck me. So I didn't text him. I didn't call. I just let the silence hang, even though it felt like waiting for something to explode. 2 days went by. Then a third. And then, late on the fourth night, he sent me a message. Liam, you left your hoodie in my car the night of the party. Want me to drop it off? It was an excuse, we both knew it. But I stared at the message anyway, debating. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep the distance. But the other part, the one that had never really stopped hoping, responded. Me. I can swing by. He was waiting in his driveway when I pulled up. It was already dark, and he had his porch light on. Hoodie in hand. He looked calm, casual, like he wasn't sweating this interaction the way I clearly was. I got out, shoved my hands in my coat pockets. Hey, he said, stepping toward me. Hey! He handed me the hoodie. It's washed. Didn't want it to smell like old fries. I huffed a laugh. That would have been authentic, though. He smiled at that, eyes scanning my face. We stood there for a second in the quiet. Then he said, You want to come in? I hesitated. But then I nodded. His apartment was the same as always. Same beat-up couch, same string lights he never bothered to replace, same faint scent of clean laundry, and the vanilla candles he claimed weren't his but somehow always reappeared. I sat down. He brought me a glass of water like I'd been through something more serious than just 4 days of emotional limbo. We didn't talk for a few minutes. Then I said, I don't know if I can trust this. He nodded slowly. I figured. It's not just about Camille, I added. It's about everything. How this started. What it means. If it's real or just... I stopped. Just what? A moment, a mood, a post-midnight mistake. His jaw tightened a little. Not angry, more like he was holding something back. Then he said, That night wasn't a mistake for me, not even close. I looked at him. He held my gaze. I've been thinking about you for a long time, he said. Long before that party. I just didn't know what to do with it, and yeah, I screwed up by not being honest. But the feelings? They're real. I leaned back against the couch. You say that now. I say that because it's true. What if it doesn't work? I asked, and my voice cracked more than I meant it to. What if you figure it out and realize this was all some confusing detour on your way back to something easier? His face softened. Then I'll own that, he said. But I'm not here to experiment. I'm here because I want to be. Silence fell again. And then, because I couldn't help it, I asked, what happens if I say yes? He smiled, slow and genuine. Then, I get to do something I've wanted to do for a while. I raised an eyebrow. What? He didn't answer. Instead, he leaned forward and kissed me. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a movie kiss. It was quiet, careful, like he knew how fragile the moment was and didn't want to break it. But it was real and warm and everything I tried not to want. When he pulled back, he whispered, "That." I stared at him, breath caught somewhere in my chest. And for the first time since the countdown, I didn't feel confused. I just felt good. After the kiss, neither of us said anything for a while. We just sat there, inches apart, hearts pounding way too loud in the quiet of his apartment. His hand rested on his knee. Mine was still curled awkwardly at my side, like I hadn't quite processed what to do with it yet. I looked at him. He looked at me. And it was different now. Everything was. I didn't want to rush that, he said, voice low. I needed you to know. I nodded, slowly. Yeah, I got it. He leaned back against the couch, exhaling like he'd been holding his breath for days, maybe weeks. Hell, maybe the whole time we'd known each other. And still, that voice in the back of my head whispered, "Don't get comfortable yet. He hasn't earned that." "I'm not expecting this to be easy," he said, like he read my mind. "I don't want you to think I just get to say a few right things and we pretend everything's perfect now." I gave him a sideways glance. "Wow, you really are growing." He cracked a smile. "Trying?" I watched the way his fingers tapped nervously against his leg, a small twitch he always did when he was anxious. "I'm still mad," I said. Not harsh, just honest. "I know. And I still think you should have broken things off with Camille a long time ago." "I should have," he agreed. "No excuse." I paused, then added, "She didn't deserve to be a test run for this." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I've told her that. I don't expect her to forgive me." I looked down at the hoodie in my lap. The same one he'd returned, freshly washed. Stupid things smelled like his detergent. Warm, familiar, safe. I ran my fingers over the sleeve. "I used to think about this," I said quietly. He looked over. "Not just you. This. Us. Talking like this. Admitting it. Wondering what it would feel like if I didn't have to keep it to myself all the time." He leaned closer. Not enough to touch me, just enough to listen. "What did you think it would feel like?" I met his eyes. "Scary." He nodded again, like he got it. "Still scary," I added. "Same," he said. For a minute, we just sat in it. Whatever this was, the tension, the release, the weird comfort of finally stepping out from under the weight of everything unsaid. Then he moved a little closer, just enough that his knee brushed mine. A simple contact, but somehow it felt louder than the kiss. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Yeah. What do you need from me right now?" The question caught me off guard, not because it was dramatic or romantic, but because it was real, thoughtful, something he never would have asked a few weeks ago. I took a breath. Honesty, consistency, patience. He nodded. Okay. And, I paused, don't make me feel like a secret. His face tightened for a second. You won't be. I held his gaze, trying to decide if I believed that. I want to do this right, he said, even if it takes time. You sure you're ready for that? I think I've never been more sure of anything. That did something to me. Made my chest feel like it was cracking open in a slow, careful way. Not painful, just raw. He shifted his weight like he was going to reach for my hand again, but didn't. Instead, he said, do you want to stay a while? I looked around his apartment, the same place where we used to hang out and binge Netflix, where I'd watched him nap on that very couch, where I used to wonder if he'd ever noticed the way I looked at him. Now, he was looking at me like he'd noticed everything. I gave a small nod. Yeah, I can stay. He smiled, a quiet, relieved smile. Good. We didn't do anything dramatic that night. We didn't kiss again, or fall into bed, or say things we weren't ready to mean. We just talked. Curled up on opposite ends of the couch, feet tangled under a blanket, half watching something on TV while his hand eventually found mine again, and this time didn't let go. It wasn't the end of anything, but maybe it was a start. It's strange how something so small, like holding someone's hand, can feel bigger than a kiss, bigger than a full confession. That night, on his couch, with the TV buzzing in the background and his fingers loosely threaded through mine, I didn't need any dramatic declarations. I just needed that quiet, steady contact, and Liam gave it to me. He didn't pull away, didn't fidget or hesitate. He just held on. I think that was the moment I started to believe him. The next few weeks weren't a perfect montage of romantic bliss. This wasn't some fairy tale transition from best friends to boyfriends. It was messy, awkward. We had to relearn each other. And not in a flirty butterflies kind of way. In a real way. The kind that makes you face all the parts of someone that you'd ignored when you were just friends. Like how Liam still didn't know how to communicate when he was overwhelmed. Or how he sometimes got quiet and distant when something was bothering him, instead of talking it through. Or how I, for all my talk about wanting honesty, struggled to say how I really felt when I was scared it might push someone away. We had to unlearn years of pretending, and that wasn't easy. But we tried. That's the part one kept holding on to. We were trying. He'd text me in the middle of the day, just to say he was thinking about me. He'd show up with my favorite coffee without asking. Sometimes he'd invite me over just to sit beside him and do nothing. No pressure, no expectations, just presence. We didn't tell anyone at first, not because we were hiding, but because we were figuring it out, building something that felt too new, too raw to survive other people's questions, except for Camille. She already knew. He told me she'd taken it as well as anyone could. Hurt, obviously. Angry, yeah. But mostly sad. She told him she hoped it was worth it, that he wasn't doing this on a whim, that if he was choosing me, he needed to really choose me. He told me that part, like it stuck with him. She deserves someone who's all in, he said. And I do too. So do you. That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't reply, I just kissed him. Gently. Quietly. Because sometimes that's all you can say. It wasn't until February that we told people. It wasn't some big announcement. No social media post. No dinner party reveal. We were at a mutual friend's birthday thing. A bar, dim lighting, loud music, too many overpriced drinks. Liam stood beside me, hand brushing mine. He looked at me, that same quiet question in his eyes I'd seen the night of the countdown. And this time, I didn't look away. I just laced my fingers through his. A couple people noticed. Eyes flicked toward us. One of our friends did a double take. Another smiled and gave me a knowing nod. No one said anything, but it didn't matter, because he held on. And he didn't let go. Later that night, back at my place, I asked him, "You good?" He nodded. "Yeah." Not freaking out, he smirked. A little, but mostly just glad. Glad about what? That I get to be with you, he said, looking at me like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a secret. I didn't feel like a backup plan. I didn't feel like someone caught in the middle of someone else's confusion. I felt chosen, seen, wanted. Sometimes I still think about that moment at the party. The countdown. The chaos. The way his hand found mine, like we were the only two people in the room. Back then, I didn't know what it meant. Now, I do. It meant everything.